Dan there.
He's not a selectman anymore.
Is that the one that,
Bell.
is that the one that Mark McCabe got?
Good evening.
Yeah, place at the beach?
Good evening.
Yeah, I think so.
Good evening.
That's who he uses?
Still waiting.
He's selling
Thank
the
you.
top floor.
Welcome. Okay, we're going to open our meeting now. Would you please join me with a pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everybody. Select Board meeting. We'll go around and introduce ourselves again, although I think most of you know who's who, but we'll do it anyway. Starting with Becky.
All right. Becky Bochet, Select Board Member.
Jason Aves, Select Board Member.
Kathleen Castronellis, Select Board Member.
Mark Parento, Select Board Member.
Ed Watson, board member.
Rebecca Olden, Town Administrator. Lisa Mead, Town Council.
Okay. So the beginning of our meeting, we have a ceremony to recognize several firefighters and members of our police department who went above and beyond. And I'll ask for, is the fire chief and police chief going to come on up and call out the names, or? Yep, they are. And we also have our citations.
Good
Welcome.
evening. Thank you for allowing Chief Gillen and myself this time. May 21st of this year, we were very lucky to be involved in the birth of a new member of Groveland. I'd like to introduce the McCrane family, Aaron and Chelsea, dad and mom, and children Declan and Maeve. If you want to come up and say hi.
Welcome.
As I said, May 21st at 8:46 a.m., police and fire were dispatched for a female in labor. Lieutenant Riley, Sergeant Patron, and myself arrived on scene at 8:48 a.m. We entered the home to find that Mom was in active labor. Lieutenant Riley walked up, started speaking with Mom. Mom said she could feel a baby. And at 8:51 a.m., Lieutenant Riley and I, along with a lot of assistance from Sergeant Patron, firefighters Dalton and Manning, Maeve was in the world. Our teamwork was second to none. We're extremely lucky in Groveland. We have a public safety division that works hand in hand and trains hand in hand all the time, and it showed that day. I'm lucky enough to present Sergeant Patron, Lieutenant Riley, firefighters Manning and Dalton with the Pink Stork, which is awarded for first responders who assist in giving birth. So if you four would please come up here. You guys, the reason we're here. Lieutenant Riley, your Pink Stork. Firefighter Manning, Dalton, and Sergeant Petrone. Chief?
Also, I want to thank the board for allowing us to come here. It's not often that we have such great stories to tell, and this certainly was one of them. What a team effort by everybody here. I want to thank Chief Valentine for organizing this and organizing everybody that was involved that day. But I'm just going to read quickly the letter that I'm going to give to Lieutenant Heather Riley and Sergeant Stephen Petrone. It's a combination letter for their file. So on May 21st, 2024, you were assigned to the day shift. At approximately 8:46 hours, you were dispatched to a medical call for a woman in labor. Without hesitation, you responded and ran out of the police station, and they really did run. They ran. I mean, it was that quick. So upon arrival, you quickly learned the birth of the baby was imminent. You immediately jumped into action and prepared for the blessing about to appear. With no time to waste, you prepared for the birth and ultimately assisted in delivering Maeve, a healthy baby girl. Is the middle name Heather? No. Oh, okay. I was just checking. All right. Even though you have never assisted in childbirth, you allowed your training, self-control, and outstanding abilities to guide you. I am honored to issue this letter of commendation to you. You represent the Groveland Police honorably, and we are all proud of your actions that day and every day. And again, that also goes for the firefighters that were involved. They also deserve all the recognition. So this is a great event, and I thank you again.
We also, have you done all your things?
Yes,
yet?
we are
Okay,
all set.
so now it's our turn. The Board of Selectmen has created a certificate of recognition for the firefighters and the members of the police department that were involved in this amazing delivery and bringing of a new life. So in no particular order, I have these spaced out. A certificate of recognition is presented to firefighter Jeffrey Dalton for your actions on May 21st, 2024, assisting in the delivery of the newest addition to the McCrane family. You arrived first on the scene, and your actions on that day impacted the positive outcome of this call. The Groveland Select Board commends you for your professionalism, knowledge, and willingness to assist in the delivery of this baby. You are a credit to yourself, the Groveland Police Department, and for the entire community. Thank you on behalf of the town of Groveland. Next, I have firefighter Danielle Manning. For your actions on May 21st, 2024, assisting in the delivery of the newest addition to the McCrane family, you arrived first on the scene, and your actions on that day impacted the positive outcome of this call. The Groveland Select Board commends you for your professionalism, knowledge, and willingness to assist in the delivery of this baby. You are a credit to yourself, the Groveland Fire Department, and the entire community. Thank you on behalf of the town of Groveland. Next, I have Sergeant Steve Petrone. For your actions on May 21st, 2024, assisting in the delivery of the newest addition to the McCrane family, you arrived first on the scene. Your actions on that day impacted the positive outcome of this call. The Groveland Select Board commends you for your professionalism, knowledge, and willingness to assist in the delivery of this baby. You are a credit to yourself, the Groveland Police Department, and the entire community. Thank you on behalf of the town of Groveland. And last, Lieutenant Heather Riley, for your actions on May 21st, 2024, assisting in the delivery of the newest addition to the McCrane family. You arrived first on the scene, and your actions on that day impacted the positive outcome of this call. The Groveland Select Board commends you for your professionalism, knowledge, and willingness to assist in the delivery of this baby. You are a credit to yourself, the Groveland Police Department, and the entire community. Thank you on behalf of the town of Groveland.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always great to recognize these kind of things. Okay, next on our agenda, we have public comment. Public comment is a time when residents, persons may come and make a statement to the select board on a matter that is of concern or question to them. The board does not interact with the person making the comment. They're allowed about 3 minutes to make a comment, and it becomes part of the public record and is recorded in our minutes. So it's a way to have input to either something on the current agenda or a future agenda. So at this time, I only have one name for public comment tonight, and I'm going to ask, is there anyone else that would need to make a public comment tonight present? Okay. If not, I'm going to recognize on our Zoom here, Heather Klasowski wishes to make a public comment on the 36 Garrison Street. Ms. Klasowski used to live in town. She's moved out, but she does operate and work in this town, and a resident of Garrison Street had asked her to make a comment. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Nice to see everybody. Okay, my name is Heather Klazowski, and I was a longtime resident of Groveland, where my husband and I raised our 4 children. And we both have established our professions in Groveland. 40B is a state statute, as you all know.
Heather, could you pause for 1 minute? The audio is not as clear, I think.
Okay,
Is it?
Hold
hang
on 1
for
second.
1 second, we're trying to. Okay. Okay.
I'll try to get close.
Yeah, get a little closer, maybe 2. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Is that better?
That's better? Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. As many of you know, 40B is a state statute that developers use to maximize their project size, and the Zoning Board of Appeals cover all aspects of the approval process. 40B projects are not required to comply with zoning requirements. 40B legislation allows towns to deny a 40B application if it is not consistent with the local need, and prohibits applicants from appeal. Town officials show us, please, and prove the need for this 90-unit building, 2 buildings. With all due respect, I believe we all must do our fair share and help the elderly, veterans, our children, and others in difficult life situations. Since 40B went into law, Massachusetts has built 58,000 affordable units for those in need. As a local real estate broker, I agree and sympathize that real estate has become unaffordable, sadly, in our area for many, as well as the costs that go with it, like insurance and real estate taxes that have gotten very expensive. I see the impact on my clients' lives who have to sometimes leave their houses because they can no longer afford to stay in their homes. So cluster zoning is a new thing with progressive government that I do not agree with. This proposed 90 units is an example of cluster zoning. I believe in the American dream and that those who work hard deserve to have exclusive rights, like choosing to live in a single family in a small town like Groveland. We bought and built our dream house at 245 Center Street in 2002, which was situated on 10 acres. As our children grew, graduated, and moved out, we no longer needed our big house and tried to downsize, simplify our life, and subdivide the 10 acres into 2 5-acre parcels, leaving the existing house on one of the parcels and cutting off 5 acres for ourselves, with road frontage both on Center Street and King Street. We had to jump through many loops with the town planner, Rebecca, and the planning board, and the cost of development grew by the day. We were very disappointed and decided to sell, feeling kind of pushed out of the community that we loved where we had built our lives. The ticket price just for the new driveway for the new owner, just so you know, was $200,000 before a shovel went into the ground for the house that has been built by someone else. I believe that Mr. Daly's project on Salem Street was met with somewhat less difficulty for him. He is building 192 units, all which fall under the subsidized housing, pushing the town from 3.45% 40B to well over the state requirement of 10% to 11.2%. So why are we building an additional 90 units? I asked for the cost analysis for the 192 units on Salem Street, for the schools, police, fire, etc., but the town does not have that analysis. How is this acceptable or even possible? Why do you not know the hidden costs that you have brought to Groveland with this 192 unit building's impact on the schools, roads, traffic, water, sewer, fire, and police departments, and the cost associated with enlarging them all inevitably. How can the town administrators not know these costs to plan for the existence of this building and the ramifications for the citizens? I was disturbed to hear the news about this crazy idea to add these 200 square foot, 90 low-income elderly units at 36 Garrison, and thought how hypocritical this seems on a 6.7 acre lot when we could barely get the right to build one small house with 2 tax-paying adults, no kids in the school system on 5 acres. When the historical owner of 36 Garrison deeded this property for elderly housing years ago, I am sure this is not what was meant, 90 units. I'm sure he couldn't even dream of that. But instead was most likely thinking his large Victorian at the site at one time could be transformed to house the town's elderly in need, which is very nice. Town administrators, have you thought about how these 2 proposed monstrosities will affect the neighboring lives of Groveland residents regarding their quality of life, i.e. noise pollution? I'm guessing there will be multiple weekly, sometimes daily visits by emergency vehicles for smoke alarms, ambulance visits, police with sirens at all hours of the day and night. Have you taken into consideration how these citizens who worked hard to come to a small community like Groveland, invest in property without traffic lights, will now need 1 or more in their neighborhood alone? Have you thought about the impact on their property values, which will be diminished in sync with the mentioned quality of life, and how this will affect them? What right do you have to take this from these tax-paying citizens that you are being paid to represent? How will you address the 100 parking spots, 100 additional cars in the neighborhood? Have you researched how many units the elderly of Groveland need currently? Did you review the mass.gov handbook for the approaches to Chapter 40B design reviews? It has a list of criteria that the site of the proposed project is generally appropriate for residential development, and the site, the site on which it is located has to be generally appropriate and needed. It should not draw attention to factors that are of particular importance when introducing a project into existing surroundings, and it should be uniform with the neighborhood. I don't see how these 2 buildings are uniform with that neighborhood. Please explain. The proposed development contains many more units than the site can reasonably accommodate, in my opinion, from my personal experience with you using Hancock Engineering as well, and therefore there should be large modifications made to the design, or preferably it should be altogether be rejected. Why would 90 units ever be acceptable in this neighborhood? Or the inconsistent design of these 2 3-story buildings? How do these structures in any way mimic the houses in the neighborhood? And what will the age demographic of Groveland be with Nichols Village, Whitestone, River Pines, and this proposed 90 elderly unit? I'm almost done, I know this is long. Have you done an impact cost assessment for the 36 Garrison site regarding traffic lights that will be needed, the police, fire departments, ambulance, emergency sirens, effects on the neighborhood, the misplacement of the Groveland elderly from their homes into these affordable units, further increasing the need for classrooms in our schools with new families taking their place? Have you looked at the stormwater design so that the runoff will not affect and flood the adjacent downhill neighboring homes on Fairview Drive and Manor Drive? Can you establish an actual proof of the need for the additional 90 low-income units on top of the daily project, which brings us over the state threshold of 10%? Have you conducted a recalculation of Groveland buildable land that could exempt it from the Mass General Law 40B projects? I reckon that Groveland will meet the criteria from the state, and guess that 1.5% of our buildable land is now on low-income housing. If so, can we apply to the State Department of Housing and Community Development and request a review to see what our threshold is for safe harbor standing? Can you explain to all of us what the benefit of this 90-unit complex is for Groveland? With Daley's project soon to be completed, Groveland will have passed the state's 10% affordable housing goal and will be at 11.2 of 40B housing total. Why would we do the 90 units since we will not receive any extra state aid for our town? And will already have met this requirement. This makes no sense to me. The coming MBTA Communities Act, on top of these changes, is bringing city to Groveland as well, requiring Groveland as an adjacent small-town community to towns with commuter trains be in compliance by 12/31/25. Groveland is going to be required to rezone to allow for 130 multifamily units to meet this criteria by then. How much state aid will we lose if we do not meet these MBTA criteria? And as Groveland citizens, will they have the right to vote on this subject? Why is the state not using all of the empty commercial property in the state since COVID work from home lifestyle for MBTA affordable housing instead of bringing the city to our small towns? These big commercial buildings would be great uses of space, I think. And this is why I think everyone is leaving Massachusetts. These radical changes, in my humble opinion, ruin the town of Groveland and the quality of life for its hardworking residents in surrounding small towns. I know it sounds like I am against elderly housing, but I assure you I am not, or affordable housing. But I just feel that there must be a more reasonable, better planned option than this one. Taxation without representation has come to Groveland with your so-called planning. I call the select board to hear the residents of Groveland regarding this non-uniform, unnecessary project that will bring no money to Groveland, and to consider the further employment of these town government agents who support this and who are slipping these hidden inclusion progressive costs to the residents of Groveland behind their backs. Why are you not putting this development on the Nichols Village property, which consists of 83.4 acres, if it is so incredibly necessary? I think I know why. It's because the mixing of the financial demographics of the two property types, and this is business to this developer who will own both properties. Town officials, you are protecting the developer and are rejecting and not representing the people of Groveland in this circumstance who have hired you to do so. To me, this all points to money, power, and corruption, and not to the needs of the citizens of Groveland who pay you. All your poor planning is ruining this nice small town that I used to call home. My best wishes to all of you Groveland residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather. Yes.
Somebody in the back wants to-
Oh, did you have a public comment? Oh, yes, you did, Laura. Laura, right? Yes, please, come on up and say your name and your address. You got to lean into the microphone a bit so that you get heard.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
Laura Sorafine.
Close.
Am I not leaning?
Yeah, it's amazing how.
Okay. I'm Laura Sorafine.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura.
I live at 13 Rollins Street in Groveland, and I'm a mom. I live about a quarter mile from the proposed Garrison project. I'm here today to talk to you, Ed, Mark, Kathleen, Jason, Rebecca. What we saw at the beginning of this meeting was awesome. It was a celebration of family and Groveland's commitment to family, and I think I saw everyone on the select board with smiles on their faces and everyone in the audience feeling the same way. This proposed project at 36 Garrison is not pro-family. My kids live in that neighborhood. They walk my dog Moby. Jason knows Moby from the dog park. By there all the time. 109 parked cars and 90 units in our small street that has not 90 people living on that street as we sit here right now is not safe. It's, like Heather, I have no issue with affordable housing or housing for the elderly, but I am also concerned that there are other places it could go if it was absolutely necessary. I saw some people shaking their heads when it was proposed that it go to Nichols Village, but I do feel like they don't want it on that property because it will reduce the value of the housing that they charge a lot more money for, but that doesn't make it appropriate for 36 Garrison. And so I just wanted to read into the record an email that I sent to the whole select board. I wrote, I've heard there's a proposal to put a 90-unit complex on Garrison Street, which is a small road with average-sized homes that are mostly one family. Maybe there's one, two family. I don't even know if that's the case. This road has multiple bus stops, kids riding bikes, and people and animals living, walking, playing on it. My kids walk to the store, they walk our dog by that property every single day. There are fewer than 90 people currently living on the whole street. Adding a 90-unit construction to this environment would be reckless and dangerous. It's not sustainable at this location. It would overtake the entire neighborhood. The road cannot support the traffic, and this should not be remotely consistent with zoning. And I heard what Heather said, apparently all zoning laws can be broken. This is outrageous breaking of zoning laws for this area, to put 109 cars and 90 units on that plot of land. I almost can't even believe I'm up here, and frankly, it's hard for me to be up here because I work full-time, I have 2 kids, my mom lives in Haverhill, I have a husband who's not feeling well, but I'm here today because this isn't right. There's already massive congestion on the Groveland Bridge in the morning and the evening. The road can't support the traffic. It's not an appropriate project. I understand development's a business, but the business of 90 units on Garrison is not right, logical, safe on this road that is not designed or intended for this kind of traffic, resource usage, and absolutely monstrous construction. If Groveland has to add units to the town for money, please put them somewhere safe, manageable, and appropriate. Garrison is not the spot for 90 units. So I'm thankful, because I did a little research, that our select board can decline this proposal, and I trust that common sense and safety will prevail here. And when I go home tonight, I'm going to tell my kids that I came here, and I'm going to tell my kids that the power is in our hands to do what's right here, and I just really hope that we do. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, is that all for public comment? Okay, we're going to move on to our agenda then. So, sorry. Okay, so first up on our agenda is the Board of Selectmen. I want to clarify this. It is not in our authority to approve or disapprove the project, but we have been asked by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to comment on the project eligibility letter filed by Bethany Communities. And so the purpose of our discussion this evening is to discuss what our comments should be. We have our town attorney, Lisa Mead, present to assist us in drafting of this response. And based on the more recent letter from the Executive Housing, I believe we have until the end of August. So tonight we can conceivably discuss, come up with board-supported comments that we wish to share to the state regarding this letter. And then at our next meeting, we could approve the letter, and we'd be within what the state has kind of suggested as our guideline. Initially, our town administrator did ask for a 30-day extension, and I commend her for that and thank her for that. And in addition to her asking for it, we also received support from both Senator Tarr and Representative Ramos, and I'll read to you their letter. We are writing to express our strong support for the request by the town of Groveland for a 30-day extension of the time period to comment on the proposed Garrison Village project as outlined in your July 17, 2024 letter to the town, since both the compelling need and rationale for such an extension are described thoroughly in the correspondence sent to you on behalf of the town by its town administrator, Rebecca Oldham, on July 23rd. We will not seek to provide you with duplicative information here. We do wish, however, to emphasize some key points relative to this request. First, the town continues to be engaged, diligent, and responsible with regard to the development of affordable and accessible housing. Most recently, as noted in the town's request, it approved 192 units of rental housing, and beyond that, it continues to explore other options to expand its housing stock. Thus far, it has taken an informed and inclusive approach to the Garrison Village project, hosting a presentation by the project's developer on Monday, July 22nd, at which the public expressed several important concerns. A public forum was also hosted by the developer on Thursday, July 25th. This ongoing dialogue reflects the town's customary thorough and thoughtful approach to this project, seeking to receive, identify, consider, research, and analyze all available pertinent information relative to the project. This is particularly important given its potential impacts on this relatively small community, which must navigate housing production and land use issues carefully. Given that approach and the staffing constraints highlighted by the town administrator, the grant of additional time for comment would allow the town to continue addressing this project in a deliberate and conscientious manner that is respectful of all parties involved and avoids the unfortunate consequence of the need to submit comments prematurely and without the benefit of full and adequate consideration. Such a condition would place an additional strain on the process surrounding this proposed development. And says briefly, thank you for consideration of this request, and we hope the extension will be granted. And the state's response was sort of vague, but the Housing Partnership addresses a technical assistance, is this it? Municipality may be eligible. That's not it. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reaching. We received, Undersecretary of the Housing and Development said they would accept comments until the end of August. So not quite 30 days, but a little more time than we were initially under the gun for. We were initially charged with 30 days, which would have meant that this would be our last official meeting unless we posted an additional meeting. So the additional time is important to us, not just to hear your concerns, but also to study the letter from Bethany Homes, to study our information available to us on housing, on our population, on our housing needs. So it's important that our letter reflects factual information that we can substantiate and that we speak on behalf of the town with due diligence and knowledge. And I wanted to just make that clear. We are charged with writing a letter to the housing in response to this letter from Bethany Homes. But we are not charged with approving or disapproving this project. The application for this project goes to the zoning board. But we take this responsibility of responding to this letter very seriously, and that was why we asked for the additional time in order to make sure that we received as much information as possible. And I don't know if everyone in this room responded, but we did receive a pretty strong response to the digital survey that we put out, and we can use that information as well in our response. So I thank everyone that participated in that. I know in the middle of the summer to throw that out there was a lot. So at this point, I guess what I would say, that was the correspondence with the survey results. Does the board wish to have those presented up on the screen at all? What's your?
Yeah,
Sure.
that'd
Can
be
we do
fine.
that? That, in case I don't believe we've released them publicly at this point, have we? We will. I think, because now they're in our packet. We're putting them up now, and they can go on our website from there. Okay. Oh, I see. There we are, with a little box. We have some seat, Christine, if you want, there's some seats. Everyone hates the front row. There we go. Great, thank you. Okay, and this is also in the packet for the Board of Selectmen this evening. You should all have that. So, the selectmen, our town administrator collaborated with the Board of Selectmen and with her executive assistant to come up with several questions that would hopefully give us some feedback from the community. And following the questions, there was just a general space for people to comment and say anything else that we hadn't asked them. So the first question, as you can see, is how did you hear about this Garrison Street project? And the orange, the wider piece was word of mouth. That was for. How did you hear about the 36? It's right there. Yes, 48%, 48.4% said word of mouth, and 36.5% said social media. So, and the smaller ones, I guess our town website, we're not getting the word out as well by there, but we will try. And a select board meeting or planning board or zoning board, 7.8%. As the next question was, did you attend our July 22nd select board meeting? Because we allowed public comment on that, if you recall. And 52.9% did not attend. 17.1 watched it, which means they saw it. Another 8% saw it on the public access television, and that little red percent attended. So not as many people, obviously this room, we see how many people are in this room versus the town. I think there was about 200 respondents overall, is that, overall about 200. Okay, so
192, I think.
you are reflected in this. And then the next one is, are you in favor of the proposed 90 units for older adult affordable housing at 36 Garrison? 71.9% said no.
The slides do not conform with what you're saying, so can we kind of have a match here so we can...
Oh, okay, yes, it's, are you in favor?
This isn't connecting with you.
Did I go past the question? No, I did the how you hear. And then the next one is, are you in favor? Oh, yeah, right there. Stop, up. Nope, yep. Are you in favor is what I'm looking. One more down. I don't know, we're a little bit out of. No, it's up above, Rebecca. I'm sorry. It's going to, there, 77.9. 71.9 I'm looking for. Go up one more time. There we go, there it is, 71.9. So if you go up just a teen, perfect. Okay, so, oh good, now I've lost my place. No, I'm not, I'm good. 71.9% said no, they are not in favor of it. 13.5% said yes, and 14.6% said maybe. And was the information presented helpful? 40% said somewhat, roughly 30% said no, and 31% said yes. Kind of almost one-third. Do you think this project as presented can provide benefits to the town? 78% say no, 16% say yes, and then there's...
I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but what you're reading, it doesn't connect with what's up there.
77.9, I'm rounding. I'm rounding. Yeah, I'm rounding. I'm a math teacher, I'm a rounder. So roughly 77.9, 78% said no, as presented, does not provide benefits to the town. 16.3% said yes, and then the remaining little orange square is a maybe. Would you be in favor if this project were scaled down? And it shows underneath it 166 responded to that question, and out of those, roughly 58%, a little more than half, said no. 30% said maybe, and 12% said yes. What size development would you be in favor of? We only have 69 responses to that question. 73% said 30 units, and 24 said 45. So unfortunately, this didn't allow for anything below 30 or nothing, so this question is what it is for those 36. It's only 69 responses. Much higher response on the next question, 166 responses. Would you be in favor of the project if it were in a different location? Interestingly, 55% said maybe. 28% said yes, and 17% said no. And these will be posted on the website, too, so you can go back through them. And then we did list some other locations, and we had 130 responses to that. We listed the 150 Center Street, the 181R School Street, the Cedardale, we're talking about the Cedardale and Groveland, I would assume, the Nichols Village, SD Park, which would be where the storage units are, Valley Screw, which is a super fun cleanup, you can't, and then in front of the Groveland Housing Authority, and overwhelmingly, people seem to feel that it should go up in the Nichols Village property. So it's 72% of people said that. The next highest one was 35% felt in front of the Groveland Housing Authority. For those of you who don't know, that's the River Pines Housing District. Sure.
Should the percentage at 100, or did people vote more than once?
They only can vote once, but see how there's only 130 responses? You could skip a question. There was no penalty for not answering a question. So we had roughly 190 responses overall, and in some cases, people chose not to answer a
Should the
question.
percentage add to 100%?
On this particular question, you could pick multiple.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's right, you're right, you're right. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yep, I misunderstood what you're asking. Following this, I'm not going to read through all of these comments because there are a lot. I did myself personally read through them because I wanted to be informed, but I'm not, they will be published so that you can read them. They're just, like I said, we wanted to give residents the opportunity, if there's something else that they wanted to tell us or ask us or share with us, this was like some open space for them to do that. And again, do you have any other comments? And you can see that people generally did give us additional feedback, which is appreciated and relevant. I want to make sure people understand that we do read this, we do take it into account, we do consider it, as it is our job to respond to this letter. So we have that, we have the additional time, and again, we have our town attorney present, and so at this time, I'm going to kind of direct it to my fellow board members that we need to begin our discussion of our response to this letter, because we do need to start considering what we would like to say. Perhaps if it's useful, do you want the letter to be up on the screen right now, the letter that we're responding to, in case a member of the board wants to address a particular portion of it? Can we do that, please? Is that available? So at this time now, we're looking at the letter from Bethany Homes to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And I'm trying to find my copy. Okay. Oopsie. Okay. Okay, do all members of the board have the actual letter available to them this evening? The initial letter? No?
I got it in my email.
Okay. So, okay, this is the beginning of the process. I'm thinking of the initial letter that was delivered to the board on June 6th, I believe. Yeah, mine is dated June 6, 2024. It begins with Dear Rebecca. And I believe it was said to have been delivered to me by hand, but it was digital, which is fine. So, you don't have a copy of that letter?
I thought you were talking about this one.
Well, this is, the letter that we're to respond to is the one from June 6th. So it would have been in the packet on June 8th as correspondence, and then we had it on our agenda for June 22nd. Yes?
Madam Chair, I was wondering if you wanted me to talk a little bit about the parameters that the...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I just want to make sure that everyone on the board has access to...
There we go.
The
That's the
letter's on
letter.
the screen
Right.
now, too. Can you,
Oh, yeah.
good eyesight?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So I think for the board, as the chair has said, I think it's important for everybody to know that the point in this comprehensive permit project that we're at is that you're issuing a letter, response letter, the community's, the select board's response to the application to EOHLC, that in fact, you don't have the authority with this letter to say, yes, you can do the project, or no, you can't do the project. That's beyond the scope of the board's authority. However, when you're looking at a 40B application under Chapter 40B, Section 21, and under the regulations, there are some reasons that the zoning board would eventually be able to say no, but that you could highlight and advise EOHLC that maybe they should look twice at this application, right? So some members of the public said this, you said this, also Madam Chair, so recent efforts towards affordable housing. So there's a definition of what consistent with local needs means in the statute, and if you haven't met 10%, it's not consistent with local needs. No matter what you think, locally, that's the definition of the statute. Obviously, you've made a lot of efforts in those, and there are other impacts, public safety, health, welfare, environment, open space, all of those things that are really important. So if you talk about consistent with local needs, that's one thing. If you talk about public safety, so if the zoning board were to say no to this, they would have to do so that, A, it wasn't consistent with local needs, it removed critically needed open space, it imperiled public safety, or it endangered the environment. So within that context, there are some comments that you've heard from the residents as well as from your department heads relative to public safety, for example, right? And so if you have feedback on that, we'll incorporate that in the letter. One of the spokespeople tonight also indicated, it's not like the rest of the neighborhood, that they're all single-family homes. So in the statute itself, it talks about promoting better site and building design. Certainly, you as the town can't tell a developer where they must put a project, right? You have a desire to have it elsewhere, but these are private property owners and private developers, so you can't say, well, you must move it someplace else. However, you can, in your comments, talk about how this isn't appropriate for this neighborhood because these are all single-family homes in the immediate area, and this is two large multifamily buildings. And so the design is not appropriate from a design aspect. So if you could focus your comments on the public safety, consistent with local needs being the design aspect of it, any other matters, it's taking up a very large open field up there in an area that seems to be, developed, and so that could be, something that we could put in there. And then, of course, your recent progress towards meeting your 10%, which if there was a building permit issued for the other project, the 192 units would go on and, of course, go over the 11%. So then the zoning board would have other authority in that instance. So those are the kinds of things that EOHLC would like to see. Whether they're successful or not, that's a whole other issue. But I think it's important certainly to put those before them, because if they issue an approval letter, oftentimes EOHLC will put conditions in the approval letter back to the applicant to say, you must address this when you go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's not for naught if they say yes, because what you want them to do is put conditions in it that then they're going to say to the applicant, you must address this when you go to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question for you, though. In the initial letter, there were some statements made that I think are somewhat deceptive. They stated that they had met with the abutters, the residents, and they had not.
Yeah.
They said that public officials were supportive of this, and to my knowledge, there was no vote of any public board. So, it's one thing to talk to one member of a board. It's quite another thing to have that board convene a legally posted meeting and vote in favor or not in favor of something. Two very different things. So I feel that our town, in its due diligence, and the fact that they always do meet with developers and have a technical meeting, and that the door, I know our technical experts keep their doors open, that if someone calls them and asks them questions about how to do something or build something, they will always take the call and answer it. They don't hang up and say, we don't want you. But I feel that that type of diligence and hard work that we represent was misrepresented, is maybe a better word, misrepresented in this letter. I'd like to see that kind of included in our response, that we feel that there was some misrepresentation of where things were at the time this letter was filed. We have since had our meeting with them. We invited them here. They then had a meeting where they invited residents and anyone else from town to come in. But we have yet to see their presentation, because I guess they didn't bring it to our meeting, and then it didn't work at the Thursday night meeting. So we would be interested, because the facts in their letter, as far as the units and the size of the units, were somewhat different from the facts presented at the Thursday night meeting that I sat in on, square footage and number of units. So things seem to keep changing, which I think is, again, difficult for our town, small staff. Myself personally, and I don't know if the whole board would support this, I feel that this is very much out of character for this neighborhood. It's a very narrow, winding, beautiful rural road, nothing wrong with it, it's gorgeous. No sidewalks, children ride their bikes and walk, so to have a 190 some odd parking lot on it would be adding, I think, a dangerous element to a road that's fairly safe right now for you to let your children walk down and ride their bikes down. And I think it's out of character for that area completely. And it's nothing about being opposed to housing for our elderly, but I do not see any specific information that this would benefit the town of Groveland, our residents, our people who might want something that's somewhere between where they're living now and the cost of a Nichols Village. I don't have any concrete information on that. And I question, they said they had done a survey, and when a resident asked for access to it, they said it's proprietary and they would not share it. And I felt, again, that was not being transparent with the town. We've been, I think, perhaps too transparent, but that's how we are. We tell you what we think, and we answer your questions as best we can, and that has not been reciprocated, in my opinion. And now, I feel like I've had my little chance to speak. I'll go down and ask for my fellow board members if they have comments that they'd like to share. What I would suggest tonight is that we express our comments, and I'm hopeful that you can draft something. In our next meeting, we can have time to review it before the meeting and vote to approve it as our official response. Okay, go ahead, Becky.
Okay, so first, I am for affordable housing. I'm for helping our seniors. I watched the Council on Aging June meeting. They did talk about a lot of residents in need. They talked about aging in place somewhere safe. But I've been doing research. I took a field trip to 4 Mile Village in Boxford, and I know we're not Boxford, but I know that Bethany Homes owns that property. I brought my mom with ice cream at Benson's, and we checked it out, and it's beautiful. It's 96 units, smaller colonial-style buildings with lantern-style streetlights, but it's on 37 acres. And it's not really a main road, but it's high up, you don't even see it. I didn't even know, I thought it was a driveway, so we went up there to check it out. After that, we stopped and got some ice cream, highly recommend the peach ice cream, and then we drove over to Garrison, and just because it was fresh in my head, what I had just seen in Boxford versus, 96 units there, they want to put 90 units at Garrison, and I struggled looking at that space and trying to envision what that would look like. Like I said, the 4 Mile Village is beautiful. I felt like the way it was set up was really nice because it's not 2 giant buildings. I think those are just, it's just too large for the space. So I don't feel like the design is appropriate for the space. Public safety obviously is another issue. I saw where the sidewalk ends. It doesn't even go in front of that particular property. I know it's not a main road, it is a rural road, but like I said, I struggle because I hear that there's a need, but it's the size I just don't feel comfortable with at all.
Jason?
I think, like I said at the last meeting, my biggest concern is definitely the traffic, and that's something that's been stated here before. And that's something I think that we need to have fully addressed in terms of how many cars do they expect and what time frames do they expect. I'd really like to see the full traffic study to have a good idea of what type of impact that would have. As far as the impact on fire, Nichols Village at the height has 122 visits a year. So you're looking, this is slightly smaller, about 15% smaller, if I did my calculations correctly. So you're looking at 5 to 8 visits per month. And I know that in terms of the impact to like our water and everything else that people have brought up has already been addressed by our water department. Our fire department's already addressed that. That's why we have a technical. Electrical's already been addressed. All the infrastructure there on Garrison is newer, and can support it without issues. But yeah, the traffic is something that I think is probably my biggest concern, and I'd like to see included in that letter. And the lack of sidewalks.
Mark?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to sit here and just repeat everything everybody else is saying, but they need to go back and redesign it, and it's gonna impact everything, and we're not ready for it. I mean, fire, and police, and just the traffic. It's just, everything about it's a bad idea.
Ed?
I don't see anything positive in this project for the town of Groveland. It's going to end up costing the town of Groveland money for public safety. The roads out there, they're not built to sustain the heavy truck traffic that would be going out there to build this project. It's not a Class A road like Main Street, where Nichols Village is built off of. So the impact on a highway department, they might have to do some repair on that. The way our water system is right now, we got people complaining, and have for years, about the brown water, and people can't wash their white clothes; they turn brown. So what is this project going to have an effect on our water? And that's big. I know the sewer system runs by there, but the increased traffic. I think it was, if I read correctly somewhere here, was 109 parking spaces for 94 units. And then they were also going to be according to the project, I think it was on the Thursday night, it was going to be able to be used by the Council on Aging. Well, where in the world are they going to park? Where's the staff members going to park? Where are the health aides if they go up there to take care of some of the people? So you've got 90 units, 109 parking spaces. Where's the visitors going to park? Again, the support staff. There's definitely not enough. And that's, there probably isn't even enough for the residents because of the 90 units. That means that if 20 of them had 2 people with a car, now you're over capacity. So, and it was mentioned 4 Mile Village. And I went out to 4 Mile Village in Boxford. Beautiful community. Did you go out there?
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. Set in the woods. It's a beautiful community. And I talked to a couple people out there. Boxford residents had preference. Former Boxford residents was second on the list. And then what they said was connections, whatever connections the Boxford was supposed to be. And so there was, it was basically 4 Boxford residents. Beautiful facility. I would even say it's more upscale than Nichols Village. That's the impression that I got. And the gentleman that I spoke with, when he filled out an application, he had to enclose a check for $3,000 just to get put on the list. And as I said, Boxford residents moved up on the list ahead of anybody from out of town. And in their, in the Bethany's Homes presentation, they, let me find it here somewhere. The site, they listed a couple of times, site control. 36 Garrison Street is owned by the N. Woodbury Nichols Foundation, a local nonprofit organization whose mission is devoted to the care of seniors within the town of Groveland. That's fine. But this particular project, because they're using additional money, state or federal, it's going to be opened up to everybody. So it's not following the Woodbury Nichols Foundation's procedures where Groveland residents have preference, because it has to be opened up to out-of-town residents. And I mentioned again at the last meeting that if a husband and wife, they want to downsize, they move to this project on Garrison, and they sell their house, they get a couple bedrooms, that's going to affect the schools. Because they got a couple, they're going to move in there, they got 2 or 3 bedrooms, and I know you can't ask for an impact on the schools, but it could directly impact the schools. And then with the value of the homes here in the town of Groveland, at more than $500,000, if husband and wife sells the property, depending on how that's set up, that could put them over the limit to get into this place. So I don't see any benefit for the people in the town of Groveland.
Okay, so specifically, they cite certain statistics in their letter. I believe they cited 135 people over the age of 62 in the lower income level, somewhere in here. And they stated several times in both public meetings, they're very confident they could fill all of these units. Well, we already have 48 62 and over affordable units behind the town hall. So however you come up with your percentages, we've already accommodated some of those people already. I noticed in Haverhill's Bethany Homes listing that they have 2-year waiting lists on both of their homes. So I'm thinking that this building would take care of needs outside of the town of Groveland instead of inside the town of Groveland. And we did ask the president and CEO if he'd be open to a different location, and his response was yes. So I don't know how that could be factored into the letter, but it seems to me that they filed their letter somewhat prematurely, that they cited having met with residents before they'd done that. They cited support of boards when boards hadn't voted on anything. I do know that as we look at the 190 or 92 apartment units, I know from discussions with the finance board that public safety departments have indicated they're concerned that they're going to need to increase staffing just for that alone. I know, because my husband served for way too many years on the Groveland Fire Department, that before we were always all volunteer. Right now, we just have 2 full-time firefighters and a full-time fire chief during the day. After that, it's all on call. So when you start to talk about only this many more calls, that's not the issue. The issue is during the daytime, unlike in the olden days when, the local barber and the dentist responded from their work to the fire station. Right now, a lot of people who are volunteers on the fire department are not in town during the daytime hours. And I know the Board of Selectmen has had discussions about perhaps the need to start looking at negotiating contracts for some type of an ambulance company. We haven't gotten to that far yet, but we need, with 192 apartments coming online, our plate is full, more than full for a tiny little town like ours. And we are working as hard and as fast as we can to accommodate the 192, to put 90 more units in somewhat, maybe even before the 192 go in, I think would severely strain our finances and cost either overrides or, because of failed overrides, because people can't afford that, cuts to schools and public safety, 2 of our top concerns in town. And it seems very unnecessary right now to rush into this project without really taking time to look at all the needs in town and make sure that we identify, affordable housing-wise, what our seniors need and what other types of affordable housing are needed beyond the 192. I feel like this is being rushed. I don't know if it matters at all, but they do not own the land. Bethany Homes does not own this land. And there's some lease business going on. I'm not sure how that plays into it. But it does seem like this is sort of a rush job. I feel at first like, okay, they filed a letter. The next thing, we got a 30-day deadline. And we only had 1 meeting scheduled before that. Now we get to the end of August. And my concern is, as fast as we speed up and try to write our letter before we get our letter filed, perhaps it'll go further. I mean, will they wait for our response?
Yes, that's why Rebecca asked for the extension. So they'll wait for the response, then they'll consider what you have to say, and all the points, and then they'll write a letter and take a review and determine that they've met the qualifications. So one of the qualifications is that they have site control, right? So they're representing that they have a 99-year lease that would constitute site control. So they would make their determination at EOHLC whether or not they agreed that that was site control. So they would make sure that they would do all of those reviews at the same time they're reviewing your comments.
So is there any thought about whether or not the way this property was deeded, that it's allowed to be leased out to an outside agency outside the town? Because my understanding of that property is that it was deeded to the Nichols Trust,
Right.
to be used by the Nichols Trust. And then they chose instead to purchase additional property and build Nichols Village.
So we can look at that and add it, I'll take a look at the deed, and we can add it into our comments. If it passes through EOHLC and it gets to the zoning board, the zoning board has to make some basic findings before they can proceed. One is, are they properly subsidized, and if they get approval, they're subsidized. 2, do they have site control? So that's an issue for the board to decide also. And then 3, where are you standing on your 10%? So those are all threshold questions that the zoning board would have to take into consideration. But we can raise the site control and whether or not this is a valid reuse of the land if in fact there's a deed restriction with the EOHLC and see if it gets any traction.
Okay, and then I know residents have definitely raised, and I'm not a highway person or a road person, so I'm not going to explain it well, but because of the way the land is sloped and the deep drop-off at the back, and the way they're proposing to build into the hill, there's a very real concern that the streets below, which are in a flood zone, would be flooded because of this. And because they're proposing a large parking lot that has no garage, I would assume that they'd have to be lit up like the Home Depot all night long, and that the elderly residents would be responsible for digging out their own cars, I guess, is where it's coming from. And there'll be no one on site overnight, so they're on their own. They'll be calling the town for services from the end of the workday to the beginning of the next workday. We're their on-call people. And we're not set up for that.
Well, the road and interior roadways would certainly be private, right? So they wouldn't be the responsibility of the town, and the ZBA would make those kind of conditions.
They're only, if they have a problem or concern or something doesn't work, they're going to 911 it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without question.
And we're going to roll,
Right.
our on-call firefighters are going to have to get out of bed. It's not like we have firefighters sitting there during these hours. I feel that we're going to be straining our current hybrid fire department to the breaking point, personally. And I say this from personal experience, having lived with a volunteer firefighter, that even just the 50 units behind the town hall with their own kitchens can generate a lot of calls, smoke alarms and things like that. Once the alarm goes off, you can't say, don't worry, it's nothing serious. We have to roll our police cruisers and our fire trucks. We don't have a choice. Right. Well, we're trying to finish the board discussion, if we could. So, do we have any more round-the-circle type of things for Lisa Mead to consider or look into? Anything?
No, not really concerning the letter, but I wanted to thank residents for taking the survey. I felt like it was really helpful and insightful, so thanks for taking the time to do that.
Absolutely. Jason, any?
No, I'm good.
Mark?
No, nothing additional.
Okay. So do you feel like you have enough input?
I do.
You have the survey, you have our input?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And if we're doing anything outside the box, you'll let us know.
No, you
We're
got
all
it.
in the box. Good.
It's all in the box, you're good.
Okay. So what I would assume is still that you work with our town administrator, and before our next meeting, we'll see a draft and.
Correct. And plenty of time, you'll have it, and then we'll get it for the next meeting.
Okay, and so you understand that while this is in draft form, it's not going to be posted on the town website. Okay, this is a time when the board is going to be looking over the packet. Once the packet gets to the meeting, and you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong, once the packet comes to the meeting, then it's a public document, and we're glad to share. But I just ask for your patience that we're listening to you, we hear you, we are reflecting things. And did you have one last?
I just thought that, Julie Cross, I just thought that you had said, is it Lisa, that some of the reasons that the zoning board could say no were not in keeping with the. Not in keeping with the character of the community, the development, the 1-2-story thing, and the open space and wildlife, because I didn't hear any of them mention the open space and wildlife, and there's definitely a lot of wildlife up there that would be impacted.
So the ZBA can't say no because of not in keeping, they can have conditions that would require it. But to your point about endangering the environment and removing critically needed open space, that would have an impact.
I think.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of wildlife up there. I see them every day, and they come to my yard. I don't know where they're going to go if they have nowhere else to go.
Yes, they took my garden.
Can I ask you a question? The draft letter that you're going to have for the next meeting, would that be available at that meeting for the public?
once the meeting begins, once the meeting opens, then the documents could be public, right? So we could have copies of the letter,
That's-
and we
okay.
could put up on the screen as well.
Okay, but
And it's a draft,
can
but
we
it's a,
ask that some, we understand it's a draft. Could we ask that some copies be available that evening?
sure, no, we're glad to do that.
And another question, is it possible for the town to give us a specific inventory in terms of affordable housing? At this structure, we have this many, here we have this many.
Actually,
Possible? I know the Office of, blah, 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 whatever it's called, it has there's a state inventory, and we know where Groveland is. Could the town make sure it's accurate?
We do have this. It wasn't in the report from the Merrimack Valley Planning, it wasn't included in the appendix, but I've since received it from you, Rebecca.
Subsidized housing inventory?
Yeah, here, you can have my crumply copy if you want.
Okay.
This is it, right?
That's the subsidy, if it's based on the 2020.
And one last question. When you talked about the original intent of the deed, the original intent of the deed, it's our understanding that it was to have the house that was there serve as the home for aged men, not however many men. Men. It's not raining, okay. Okay.
Put that up. I guess mine's a little outdated, she's looking for a better one.
Could that be on the website? Could you put that on 36
You can get it up
Garrison?
on the website for you.
Okay. But I just want to make sure, did you hear what I said?
I'm sorry.
I had just shared that the house that was there, that was supposed to be for aged men, not
Yes, I read that in
the
the
house.
comments.
The house, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Many people commented in the comments.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I make one more clarification? Once we have the 192 done, those units on Salem Street, I was told today that the town of Groveland will be at 11.2% subsidized housing, and we only are required by the state to have 10%. So I don't know why we would need another 90 units.
Yes. Okay, so we have now up on here, a more updated version of what I had originally thought was our most recent one.
So-
There we go.
I can answer her question, Madam Chair, if you'd like.
Oh, go right ahead.
So the 192 units counted when the comprehensive permit was issued. If you don't pull a building permit within a year, those numbers fall off the subsidized housing inventory. And they don't go back on until a building permit is issued. And then they're on for 18 months unless a certificate of occupancy is issued, at which time they're permanent. But if a certificate of occupancy doesn't issue within the 18 months, they fall off again. So currently, they're off because no building permit has issued.
Okay, so when will they be completed? When will that 11.2 come into play?
When a building permit is issued.
I know, but when do you expect Mr. Daly to be finished with that project?
To apply for a building permit, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. And also, is the state giving Groveland any money to have this 90-unit complex?
Heather, we're gonna try and continue with the meeting. So if you want to, you could send additional questions through to the town administrator. I'm glad to answer them all then. Because right now, we have up on our screen for people to see just, there was a question from residents here that, what do we have for affordable 40B subsidized housing inventory? And as you can see, the River Pines, the 58 units is up there. On Gardner Street, there's 3 more. I mean, total of 95, which brings us to what, 3.68%? Is that what I'm reading correctly up there?
Yeah.
Okay, so at 3, and then, of course, the 192, once permitted, will push us well beyond the 10% that's required by law. And it's not just required by law, I mean, we're going to have to make sure our services can accommodate the 192 apartments as well. But this just gives you an idea of what we have, and for those that don't know that, the River Pines is a 62 and over except unless there's like a significant disability, I think then the age thing might not count, but typically it tends to be 62 and over affordable housing. But they don't have elevators. It is 2 levels. So, that's it. And if you look through online, I don't know how easy it is to find reports. I know, Rebecca, you mentioned you had done an affordable housing report of some form in 2019 when you were town planner.
As part of a community preservation project, we did a housing implementation plan. That's something similar that you had found as part of the Affordable Housing Committee and the Affordable Housing Report that they had done, which is not the same as an affordable housing production plan.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a new language. There's a lot of verbiage here, but I do know back in 2004, we did have an affordable housing task group, and they did deliver a report, and I think Debbie Webster and Dr. William Dark are the only remaining members still in town. I did speak with Bill Dark about it, okay, you did it, you planned to put more housing in at the River Pines and some other locations, but that didn't happen. Why? And he pointed to the fact the housing market plummeted. There was that bubble or burst or whatever that was, and things kind of froze. And then, of course, we rolled into that pandemic. This might be a time where an affordable housing task group could come back together in the town to start, giving residents a place to have input and to help, direct where you want things to happen and where you don't want things to happen. Because as we can see, if we just sit here and wait, it comes at us, right? And if we start to read our plans and come to master plan meetings and maybe reignite some of the affordable housing task group work, we can have even more say in how things happen and not constantly be surprised. We still can't control privately owned property. We can't say, no, you can't do that. But if we're directing the affordable housing responsibly, I think that would go a long ways. And hopefully our letter will reflect that. But this document can be up on our town website as well. If you think of anything else that you want to see regarding this, we're glad to share. I know there's always a lot of questions, like how many seniors need this, and those are statistically difficult ones, because the numbers that you see from the census and all, those are estimates based on sampling. There's a lot of privacy involved, so I think going and visiting other elderly housing sites in other towns is a great endeavor. I compliment you. I thought of it but didn't get to it, so good for you. I think if you see something in another town that's small like ours that you think would help us, please share it with us. Send it to our town administrator. We're always open to your input, okay? But I think we do need to move on, and I think, like I said, we will have hopefully that draft letter, and you will be able to see it when we see it as the meeting opens. We can do that for you. Okay. All right, so next on our agenda is, the bus parking location. Did everyone have a chance to review? The town administrator reviewed several other sites. I think if you recall that the residents at the River Pines came to us and told us that the buses were facing their windows and starting up early in the morning, as the noise and the exhaust was not helpful to them, and so we told them we would look at other locations, and our town administrator did this work for us. So, Rebecca, would you like to share the solution?
So at the last select board meeting where we discussed this, I believe it was select board member Mark Parento had mentioned that maybe it might be beneficial to take a look at parking at the Bagnell Elementary School, since that's where the children are being dropped off. So we contacted Jonathan Seymour with the Pawtucket Regional School District to see whether or not that would be a viable option, and that they wouldn't interfere with their operation or cause any inconvenience. for the school administration. He reached out to Principal Day, and I believe they had a conversation, and they agreed that there was an area at the Bagnell Elementary School that they could potentially park the 6 buses that are currently being parked here over at the Bagnell Elementary School. So that was one of the solutions. We had reached out to Salter Transportation on multiple occasions to get some feedback as to what they would like. I know at one point in time, they had been parking over at the municipal lot over on Gardner Street, and it wasn't ideal for sight distance issues and maneuvering around that particular parking lot. So that was something that they had brought forward back when we originally had this conversation, and we asked them to park all of their bus vehicles over at the municipal lot here at 181 Main Street. So they have not really communicated with us whether or not they would agree that this would be a better location. But as the special granting authority for the property use, it would be at the discretion of the select board to designate and allow for them to park on the property, and that would be the same as the Bagnell Elementary School, as we are the owners of the property. So I'm not sure how the board would like to proceed, but I did confirm with PRSD that they would be amenable to allowing us to use the property as such, again, with a little limited inconvenience to them, and it seems like it would be a viable location and not too far from where we are currently and where they essentially are to start during the morning and end at night.
Okay, so has everybody had a chance to look at the chart and see that the parking spots are out behind the building, is that correct? Is that behind, that's behind the Bagnell?
Correct.
The backyard? Okay. And all 6 buses, is it, could be accommodated there?
That's what they had stated, correct.
And they're pretty much out of there by 6, between 6:30 and 7, from what we discussed at the last meeting. So I don't think it'd be a problem for parents who are trying to drop off or anything like that. Anybody have a concern? Because I believe we'd need a vote of this board to change it. Is that right? Right? Do you need us to vote on this?
So they have not applied for a permit for this 2024-2025 school year. Typically, we receive the property use permit from each of the buses that are looking to park over here at the Town Hall complex, so they have not. So again, like we had mentioned, the Groveland Housing Authority residents have brought forward that they did not appreciate the noise and the additional space that they were taking at that particular location. So since they're not there right now, there's not really much of way of enforcement that we can do at this point in time. So I think that we can just communicate with them, if the board so chooses, that they would prefer them to park at a different location. It had been discussed that this was the location, and upon applying for your property use permit for the upcoming school year, please utilize this particular location unless you would like to come before the board and advocate for a different location for a discussion. So something to that effect, because there's really nothing to do at this point in time since the buses aren't there.
Okay, and so they are not employees of Pentucket, they're employees of Salter.
That's correct. They're Salter Transportation. It's completely separate. It has nothing to do with the school. They just provide the transportation services through a contract negotiated with PRSD for the school year.
Okay, so do you just need to know consensus of the board on this topic when they come to you? Or?
I would say if you want to take a vote that you would like them to proceed with a different location, preferably if you all agree that this would be a better location, we can put that, like I said, in writing, and then we can proceed. But it would be nice to have a vote of the board stating that they would prefer them not to park in that location and that an upcoming application should reflect a different location.
Someone like to make that motion?
Maybe the superintendent has maybe a comment on that.
Is he one of our bus drivers now? They're not employees of Pentucket, so, but feel free, please. Sure. You want to talk about bus parking?
He's trying to hide in the back row.
So I obviously think that Salter's obviously the place to go and ask that question. I don't know what their driver's situation is. Like, obviously, the questions are during the day, how many of those drivers take their buses and take them home? Because if they're, during the day, if they're going to be parking at the schools, that might make it a little bit tricky. There is, however, if you go there during the day or like on the weekends, where they'll be parked there, there's a tremendous amount of parking for youth basketball that takes place in that gym. But every time I go there, I find that the space behind the cafeteria is generally open. So I think if that spot gets designated, it seems like it's a pretty viable option. I just don't know the specifics on the drivers, if they're keeping the buses during the day or if they're coming back on campus. If they come back on campus, there's still that space there, but it's a little bit tighter. But I would think it's pretty tight back here as well.
Right, they were parking them behind and
Right,
back.
sure.
And then the apartments are
Right there.
pretty close to where
Right
they
there.
were parked, so it was a realistic,
Yeah, I think the plan, Mr. Seymour, talking with Mr. Day, they're going to know, Mr. Day in particular will know the most about
Okay.
what's going on in that building. But if he feels confident about that, I think that day question's the one thing I'd have questions on, and we'll just probably have to separate something out for the winter time when youth basketball is playing there, that they're kind of sectioned off into that back parking lot.
oh, you have to reserve them.
Yes, 100%.
Right, because my understanding is they don't bring the bus home, they leave it there.
They leave it there,
So
right.
They must put their car here. until-
Somewhere, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Good, thank you. So do we want to make a formal motion that should they apply for the permit would be given for the indicated parking spaces behind the Bagnell School?
Was that the motion?
I would like someone to make it.
Oh.
Yeah. Like that, just say so moved.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
No way I could remember.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Thank you. That was unanimous, right?
Yep.
Yep, good. Okay, so next is to approve the warrant for the September 3rd state primary. Did everyone have a chance to look at that? I'm looking for it. It's a minute. And as long as it looks like it's correct and everybody's name is on it that has to be on it. Do we vote on this as well?
Yes.
Okay, so check the spelling, punctuation.
Looks okay to me.
Okay, make a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrant for the September 3rd, 2024 state primary election.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Yep.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, and next on our agenda is, and I think I might have jumped ahead on this, the no parking signs for the Main Street near Shanahan Field. I think there's a few pictures that I clicked on one of my latest walk-bys. And I did have kind of an informal general conversation with the police chief, and I think you also heard the resident of Gardner Street at the annual town meeting talk about that when the cars are parked all along that bend in the road where Gardner merges into Main, it obstructs the visibility. Often they obstruct the sidewalk. But, and the other, one of the final pictures I had there was that despite these cars being parked there, the actual parking lot that's still available, the grass lot, had no cars in it. So I'm wondering if perhaps over time, because so many people are parking on the side, have folks forgotten where the actual grassed-in parking lot is? And one of my questions was, we're getting our highway project manager, I'm sorry if I'm stumbling over the title, he's coming on board this month, correct?
The project and programs manager.
Project, might want to have this individual weigh in on it, or somebody from Highways to say, can we designate the parking area a little better? Because there's the parking area. That, it's kind of hard to see from there, but that kind of where the grass isn't so green area. And I'm not even sure how many cars we feel that can accommodate, but my concern was that if we continue to allow this over parking. As you saw in the pictures, at one point, there was a builder parked on one side and the cars on the other side, and a car coming down the one-way had to kind of squeeze between the two. So somebody coming out of Gardner, there's no way they're going to see that there's another car already traveling on Main Street. Yeah, that's what's
I
happening.
passed that. I'm glad you took a picture of it.
Oh, okay.
Because even I was shocked. I was driving down the street at that time.
So, I believe there's already a thing that you're not supposed to park on the sidewalk, but there's also the concern about once you get them off the sidewalk, that's just going to push them further into that narrow merge there. And so that's why, again, I'm not an expert on roadways and what the rules are and where you need to start the no parking to make that safe. But on that bend is, I think, a really big concern. So I asked to have it on the agenda, and I'm asking for the input of the board members on this as to, we need to start to, I think, change the view of people that go there, that this is not an okay place to park. I don't know if I have pictures of it, but there was a house just before the park, and they have their snow stakes out. And I realized why they're there, to keep the cars off of the median in front of that, yes. Middle of summer. Smart, though. And give them credit for that. That's why those are there all summer, so that people will not pull up on that median in front of their home. So, I mean, obviously, you could ticket them for being on the sidewalk, but I thought more of an educational outreach, perhaps sending an email to this was the Groveland Youth Soccer League, I think, using the fields at that point, that they could flood out to their members, but I would prefer to see them start filling the parking lot that exists right now before they go onto this part of the road. And eventually, I think you do have to just start posting it for no parking. I don't see how we can not do that.
Do we have a time frame on when the parking lot's going to be redone?
The parking lot construction as of right now, per the schedule provided by the engineers, we're looking at construction in the spring of 2025.
So, again, my point is, I know the parking lot's not done, but there is parking there available, and they don't seem to know it or want to use it. Do we want to take some preemptive action here and direct them to begin using the parking that's available and try to leave at least the part of the one-way that's leading up to the merge, leave that more open? I think once we get our highway coordinator program manager on, we get a more specific, like I know there's rules with merging of roads and what you should and shouldn't have going on.
So the bylaw doesn't reference anything other than what was included in your packet about parking on sidewalks. It does not dedicate this road, as it does in others, that it would be a no parking area.
Correct, but I believe when our prior superintendent referenced, I forget what he called them, when we were doing the Sunset Drive thing, as to how you direct parking. I thought there was some general guidelines for when you have a merge of two roads like this.
Yeah, you could probably have a sign saying, no parking from the, 100 feet from that intersection or something.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm saying perhaps when we get somebody in that position, that could be researched and we could know for sure, do we need to have a hearing and post no parking signs, or are there already guidelines in highways that would direct our efforts? That's my question. Does anybody else want to add to that?
I mean, I say it's a good project for the new person. I mean, it's been a while since I took driver's ed, but I know, you're not supposed to park on the sidewalk. I think signs would be helpful, but I don't know if it's necessarily needed, so I get where you're coming from, but I think that having the project, I forgot the name already, but having that project manager take a look at it, have it be a focus would be helpful.
Jason?
Yeah, the only thing I think that's challenging is trying to redirect people to park in an area that doesn't look like a parking lot It looks like you drive in, drop them off, because it's just a horseshoe of paved area, and then turn around and tell them, you can't park here because we're going to rip it all up and put a parking lot, so you can park here. Being so close to the time that we're going to be correcting this problem, I think it'd be best to leave the status quo until the parking lot's finished.
Mark?
I mean, I think part of the reason they park in there is just because that if we were to block off that little gate right by the snack shack, it would, push them, into the parking area too, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just laziness, that's kind of.
Well, we're creatures of habit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ed?
I agree with Jason. When they do the parking lot over, where are they going to park? And this is, depending on where you limit no parking, then they're going to be parking out in front of the building, where that's a two-way street out there. And then you're going to want to make that no parking. Then you're going to push them down the street a little bit further. Where do they go? And I think you ought to leave well enough alone until you take a look at it when the parking lot is done.
Okay, I guess I feel like, we should take some preemptive action, but I'm willing to wait for the new position to be filled, to get some input from that, just because if something happens, if there's an accident there, we're well aware of why that would happen. It's obvious. And people do try to cross the street there, even though the crosswalks haven't been painted in a while, that crossing over from Gardner to the soccer field is common. The police chief also suggested maybe just posting by the gate the sign drop-off zone, to maybe say, hey, instead of just parking here, just drop your child off. And when you say, well, where will they go? Well, once we build the lot, what if that is filled? Where could they go? They could go to the municipal lot. Is it a bit of a walk down? Sure. But as a parent who drove my children to soccer, lacrosse, and hockey, there were times when I had to walk a bit, when there wasn't convenient parking. I dropped the kids off and found a parking spot and then walked my way back. And sometimes that's what has to happen. I think what's going on now is just dangerous, that's all. But that's why I put it on there, to bring it to the attention, and if there's no further discussion, we can move on. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a resignation of Dot DeChara. Did I say her name correctly? DeChara? DeChara, yes, from the Cultural Council, effective July 24th, 2024. Need a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Dot Sheriff from the Cultural Council, effective July 24th, 2024.
Second that.
Any discussion? Yes,
I think we ought to add with regrets.
yes, absolutely. We'll thank Dot for her service. I know, does she continue to serve in our Council on Aging, yes?
At one point, I believe she did, yes.
Yes. So she's continued to serve the town, and we thank her for her time and her efforts. All in favor?
Yep.
With regrets? Thank you. Next, we have the Select Board meeting minutes from April 8th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board meeting minutes from April 8th, 2024.
I'll second that.
I'm going to recuse myself. I wasn't a member.
Okay, so all in favor?
Yep.
4 in favor, 1 recused? No, she wasn't here.
Yep.
Okay. And then next is Trash and Recycling Committee update. So we had our meeting last week, I think, and we've made a lot of progress. We have a comparison of many towns chart, and then we have a comparison chart that I'm working on that singles it down to just a few towns that are perhaps more comparable to us. One of the recurring things that we're seeing across the boards in all towns that have been able to save money is to go to an automated pickup. So that would mean that we would need to provide the carts, otherwise called garbage cans and recycling cans, but They're called carts. I think our town administrator estimated to purchase these for the entire town, $260,000.
Correct, for 2 barrels.
For
One
2
recycling, 1 trash.
Right, and so, and we're tossing around the size of them. Some towns, in the sample that we looked at, they have a 64-gallon trash and a 95-gallon recycling, which is then, some towns have recycling picked up every other week, which may also be a savings to the town. And the recycling bin hopefully would never be that heavy, because it's cardboard and plastic. But in the case of one town where there was a resident who felt that the size of the recycling cart was too much of a challenge for a long driveway, they were able to provide 2 smaller carts to that resident. So we had some discussion at our meeting about moving ahead on the purchase of the carts, because as things stand right now, I think we've mentioned it, it's virtually impossible to try to adhere to the 2-barrel limit, because barrels are all different sizes, and people are using the recycling bin still, plus a trash can, so it's not automated. And so I think part of what our recommendation might be towards next year's annual town meeting would be to just go ahead and purchase the carts for the town to get us set up. And whether or not we'd be able to negotiate any savings from our current hauler, that would be up to them. We'll wait and see. But we are working actively on a list of items that we would want included in a request for proposals. And I think that, was it you, Rebecca, that spoke about a different way of referring to that instead of request for proposals?
We could do an RFP, like an RFI, a request for information from those vendors that would be willing to bid on a contract of that nature, to get an understanding of whether or not those conditions would be something that they would be able to offer the community.
Okay, so that would be a request for information, which is gives us a little more latitude, and allows then our town administrator to then negotiate with ones that seem to have or wish to enter into the kind of agreement we're looking for. So we're fine tuning that. I think we have some infomercials maybe coming up. I know that Chris LaCour told me they have a running thing now for the composting that Black Earth is now doing. Yes, you do have to pay a little something to participate. And hopefully if we go to a pay-as-you-throw, you would be able to get some matching discount to reflect that you are composting. I signed up for it because I thought if I'm going to advocate for this, I want to know how it works, and I can say it works really well. They provide me with a small receptacle that latches, it closes securely so you don't smell it. They provided me with the bags for the larger one, and then smaller bags for inside the kitchen so that you could throw your compost into a small bin in the kitchen, and then in the small bag put it into the larger container that does, again, latch securely to keep anything from smelling. And then they come, I'm getting picked up every other week, but you can go to weekly pickup as well. And it seems to be working fairly seamlessly. It's kind of exciting. I'm not throwing out as many bags of trash as I was before. You'd be surprised how many things you can throw in the compost pile. I'm going to be glad to share with all of you the comparison charts. We just need to get them a little more fine-tuned. They're in a rough stage right now. But we are looking at definitely the automatic pickup, perhaps separating the recycling contract from the trash contract. And that's when town administrator suggested maybe the request for information as a route of gathering information. If we did that early on, right? You would want that like in the fall.
Well, I think we were thinking about getting a list together and starting that process in the fall to the springtime.
Yeah, because we have till 2026, right?
It's not
For
this fiscal year or the next fiscal year, it will be the following. So FY '27, we'll have to have a new contract in
New
place.
contract, right. So prior to that, we can definitely get everything in order and get public information out there. So, did any board members have any questions? Yes?
there any movement by the committee to bring it to a vote of the townspeople?
It would have to be voted at the town meeting. I mean, we can't fund a contract without a vote of the town meeting. So, and in addition to what you just said, is like many of the contracts have that language directly in the contract, that this contract is subject to funding at the town meeting, so that if a town meeting decides they don't like a contract, it can be ended. We've seen good examples of contracts that can be ended prior to the term that's agreed to. Also, we've seen contracts that have penalty clauses for lack of customer service and response to problems in the collection. So this whole task group looking into all of this has uncovered a lot of information. And yes, it would go to a town meeting. They would have to vote all aspects of this contract.
Well, what I'm talking about is a town election article to stay the present course, a townwide pickup, or a choice, or go to a pay-as-you-throw. I think that would be the fair way to go, seeing as how it's going to affect everybody, because the last discussion that I brought up about it is, I asked, of the money that we're paying now to the trash pickup, how much is going to be returned to the people to defray the cost of the pay-as-you-throw? And it was, if any, it was going to be very minimal. So I think that the townspeople should have a choice of voting. Do you want to stay the course, or do you want to go to a pay-as-you-throw?
So I'll respond to that. Again, it's going to be a vote of this Board of Selectmen. You know, you can certainly put anything you want on the ballot. You can ask people any question you want on a ballot vote. But all of the other towns and all of the research that we've been doing for almost over a year now indicates that public education and public feedback is necessary as you begin to evolve your contracts. And so what would happen as far as savings to the townspeople, the savings would be that they will pay nothing for the carts. And then as the automated pickup is phased in, that will lower the cost of the trash contract. So the annual town meeting will not be appropriating any more money than is necessary. So people will not be appropriating $1 million for trash if we don't need $1 million to pick up the trash. And from the research that I've done so far as the automated pickup, we should see significant savings in that. And so if, for example, we were to buy the carts from stabilization, and then when we go to the automated pickup, the residual money would wash out to free cash, which is the people's money. And then in all the years that follow with a new contract in place, we would only appropriate what's necessary. So the taxes would not reflect the $1 million plus that we're paying for trash right now. Right now, we're not only just paying a high price for the non-automated pickup, we are paying a much higher price than all the towns I've looked at for our recycling. We're paying a processing fee of $109 a ton, I believe, somewhere around there, $103 a ton, which is more than the cost for our tonnage. West Newbury went to an automated pickup and is saving a tremendous amount of money and is paying far less with no processing fee for their recycling. They're paying only what the recycling center charges. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to save and to save our taxpayers a lot of money, and it'll be reflected in the amount that's appropriated for trash at the town meeting. Okay, we're not going to appropriate $1 million when we don't need $1 million. So the savings will be achieved, Selectman Watson. They won't be charged for something that we don't need to charge them for. Oh, so we're also, I forgot. So it's called TerraCycle, right? So we would have bins here at the town hall to start, and I guess the town of Salem, so David Greenbaum, chairman of our Board of Health, brought this to our attention, has these bins for like used toothpaste and deodorant, and instead of throwing them in the trash, you'll be able to hopefully bring them down here and chuck them in these bins. So one of the things that we've learned is that nobody is getting paid for their recycling right now. Everybody's paying. We're paying much more than other towns. But where you can save money is by diverting things from the trash and recycling chain. So this would divert toothpaste and deodorant and other items out of the trash. So it does help. Everything we do, we have the linen, the clothing and shoe drop, right? Yep. And Hazardous Waste Day, which we share with West Newbury and Newburyport, is coming up, so we'll highlight again. One of the things that was recommended is that if you're trying to do the Hazardous Waste Day, if you pool together with some neighbors, it's cheaper. I'm not familiar how, but it is. So if you've got things that you know have to go get disposed of in that manner, try and see if some of your neighbors can also join you and maybe one car go with everything. And that will save you a little bit, because you do have to pay. And they don't take credit cards. You have to have cash or a check, yes. So I mean, that we can remind them again in our next meeting, have it more scripted. Or we can get it onto our loop thing, right? That would help too. Okay. But anyway, we welcome any and all input from anybody on this whole thing. We're going to be meeting again at the end of August. I forget what, we have someone that's coming to see us, I think. So I'll get you more information on that. Maybe something worth seeing. But moving along, we have nothing that's not reasonably anticipated that I'm aware of, correct? Okay, and on to town administrator time.
For town hall operation updates, just to let the board know that we're continuing to conduct annual performance evaluations. We're reviewing and updating the capital project request form and the process. We're closing out fiscal year 2024 and beginning the free cash certification process. We are looking to finalize the organizational chart that was requested by Select Board Member and Chair Castronellis, so that should be completed for the next meeting. To let the board know that we are working on the 175th celebration of Groveland. This was something that was started by Tracy Guilford and wanted to create a committee in order to get that up and running. He was no longer able to move forward with that. I've enlisted helpful volunteers like Claire Walsh, who was here earlier this evening, to assist with this effort, as well as other members. We have a very active committee that we're working with for Pumpkin Fest, and a lot of those volunteers, including some of the fire department members, want to be involved in this process as well. So I think that they're going to have a lot of volunteers, but if there's anybody who would like to volunteer, please get in contact with myself or the executive coordinator, and we'll add you to the list. And then speaking of Pumpkin Fest, to let everyone know that we have set a date for October 16th. The rain date will be October 17th, and we have changed the location of the event due to a lot of the safety concerns that came forward from the fire department and the police department with the attendance that we had last year. So we'll be looking to hold that down at the Pines Recreation Area, and more information will follow in terms of the setup and the logistics. But if there's anybody else out there who would like to participate, anybody on the committee, the board, please let me know, and we welcome you at any of our meetings. For the field use and property use and special use event permit updates, we have issued a permit for the Pentucket Youth Soccer as well as the Groveland Youth Soccer for the fall 2024 season. We've also approved a permit for USGS for a water quality event on August 7th. That's a public event. It's from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And they will have water quality instruments and information about the work they're doing on the Merrimack River. And they'll also have a live sturgeon to display at the site. So pretty exciting that they're doing that here at the Pines Recreation Area, and that they've invited us all to learn a little bit more about what they're working on. For grant updates, congratulate the fire department. They were successful in their efforts with Georgetown, Amesbury, and Merrimack with the FEMA Assistance for 2 Firefighters grant, the AFG grant, to purchase the portable radios. Groveland is receiving approximately $185,000. The town provided the cash match for this particular grant of $18,500 at our last town meeting in 2024. So this has been an ongoing effort, and I would like to thank the fire chief and all of the other communities who had taken on this effort. So this will allow Groveland to communicate with all of Essex County and other bordering communities, including southern New Hampshire. Also, we have the Council on Aging. The Groveland COA received 2 service incentive grants. They're called SIG grants from the Massachusetts Council on Aging. $825 for a field demonstration project for innovative programming, and $4,000 for a field demonstration project for development and implementation of outreach programs. For procurement updates, water and sewer, we issued a contract for the sewer pump station roof replacement and installation today, actually. For the item under technical review conferences, where there is no TRCs that were held since the last meeting, I did want to let the board know from a development standpoint, we did have an application that was filed for a definitive subdivision for 181 Rear School Street. That's the lot in front of Whitestone Village. This is a 6-acre lot, and they're proposing 6 lots. A preliminary subdivision was filed with the planning board in March 2023. They did deny the preliminary subdivision, but that does not prohibit them from moving forward with the definitive subdivision. So they will be hearing that at their meeting in September. And then also to let the board know that enforcement was taken on the property at 141 Washington Street, specifically due to concerns over the Groveland zoning bylaw and the violation of the zoning bylaw in terms of storage of parking and equipment and vehicles. So they were made aware of that, and they were to cease all efforts on that particular property. In terms of community preservation projects, Washington Park, at the last meeting I had said that we were going to be doing construction last week. Unfortunately, there was a death in the family of one of the contractors, so they were not able to start the project as they had hoped, but they are looking to go out, weather pending, on Wednesday. So again, we're still relatively on schedule, but there was a slight delay, and I did want to make the board aware of that. Then also, we are working with COMAC, an irrigation company, in terms of the community garden proposal, and looking at ways that we can tap into the water resources down at the Pines Recreation Area and bring that into the area that's being proposed, what that would cost and what that would look like. So we are getting that information to the applicant to review as part of the proposal that they were awarded monies for. So those are the updates that I have.
Thank you. That's not much. No, that was a lot. You do so much amazing work. We appreciate it, really do. Board members?
I have nothing this week.
Jason?
Is this for selectmen time?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. I do want to thank the police chief and the fire chief. I think it's very important to point out that their staff is what represents them, and they have put together an incredible department. And I just want to thank them for all their continued work, hard work, and making it all work. And also, the State Department of Public Health announced that they added some more towns to the high risk of triple E from mosquitoes. We were already on that list, but Friday they announced some more. So just recommend that everybody take a little extra precaution when they go out in the evening hours, so that we don't have any positive cases.
Mark?
Good.
Ed?
Almost set.
Okay, I'm all set. Under our correspondence, there was an email from Joe Demore, and he forwarded to our attention an article from the, I think it's Eagle Tribune, regarding the Haverhill City Council taking some actions to try and control or curb the housing growth in Haverhill. And so we thought the board would find this informative, and yes, so you all have that to read through, and if you want more discussion of it, or you want that on an agenda, you just let me know. I felt it was more informational than anything else right now. So, and our next meeting is, wow, Monday, August 19th. I think I might be going back to work by then, soon after. If there's no more discussion or anything, you can make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:33.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you so much.